Hello, how are you? My name is John Scanlon with the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference, and welcome to the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference Podcast, a series where we meet all of the speakers who will be presenting in Dublin in April of 2024. And in this week's episode, we meet Sheila Granger. Sheila, an internationally renowned therapist based in the UK, speaks about her background, the power of relationships and local media to attract clients, demonstrating hypnosis where those opportunities arise, continuing to learn business skills as well as therapeutic skills, a discussion about adoption and its effects, Sheila's business globe, its origins and supports, and also the power of goal setting and the power of community, which is something that this conference aims to harness amongst the Irish hypnotherapy community. Tickets for the conference are available at www.irishhypnotherapyconference.ie, where Sheila and all the other speakers from Ireland, the UK, Europe, and the USA will be presenting. So I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I did. Welcome, everybody, to the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference Podcast, the series where we meet all of the speakers at the Irish Hypnotherapy Conference in April in 2024 and basically talk all things hypnosis. Today, we have Sheila Granger, and rather than me giving Sheila's bio, I'm going to let Sheila do that all herself. So you have a very vast background, Sheila. But do you want to describe how you got into hypnotherapy in the first place?
Well, when somebody asked me this question, it's interesting because you forget really the times that you did come across hypnosis in your life. And you always kind of think, oh yeah, well, it's when I first started my diploma training but really for me, my first experience of hypnosis was I was the victim of a stage hypnotist. Yes.
Victim is a strong word.
Probably quite a strong word. It really felt a little bit like that at the time. So I didn't know anything about hypnosis. I was probably about 27 at the time. And myself, ex-husband, group of friends were going out on a Saturday night. And we didn't really know where to go. And somebody suggested, well, there's a hypnotist on at the local Palladium. And we're all like, what does a hypnotist do? I don't even know what a hypnotist is. What does a hypnotist do? Well, we'll go along and see what it's all about. And so we were sitting in this audience, and I'm a highly suggestible person. I am a hypnotist dream. Well, to a certain extent, I'm a highly suggestible person and highly hypnotizable, but I'm not very good at accepting the suggestions that are made to me. I'm like, just put the filter up there. But in this particular case, he was doing suggestibility tests to the audience. I know that now. I didn't know that at the time. And my hands were stuck together like glue. And everybody who couldn't undo the hands had to go up on the stage. Now, at the time, I would not be somebody. I'm so suggestible. I'm sticking my own hands together here. Like, hang on a minute. I've got stuck. Just hang on a minute. And I wouldn't have been somebody at the time who would have got up on a stage. No way. I was not a confident person at all. And my ex-husband at the time was like, undo your hands, because otherwise you're going to have to go up there. Just undo. I'm like, I can't do my hands. So I ended up on the stage. I was pedaling to save E.T. And then I was told that E.T. had died, and I was absolutely devastated. Nice. I was also a washing machine on fast spin. Now, I won't give a demonstration today of what that looks like because it wasn't very pretty, really. And, I kind of kept coming out with it because it wouldn't be something that I would normally do. But that was really my first experience of hypnosis. But then moving on from there, I never kind of thought any more about it at the time. My background, I used to work for the government. I was a fraud investigator. So I investigated people who weren't quite as disabled as they claimed to be. And my job was to get the government's money back. I was also a magistrate as well. take him to the nearest tree and hang him until he is dead. Oh, sorry, man, you can't do that. It's just a parking offence. But, you know, it was a great exercise in people watching.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think sometimes we forget with hypnosis, you know, we're just looking at communication skills, really. We're just looking at a way of communicating with people, which means we can take it into all sorts of walks of life. But, you know, we're going back, I've been in the profession 15 years now with full time, and it only feels like yesterday, really. And when I first kind of decided to go on a hypnosis training, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I was a bit of a serial course goer. I like watching people. I had a bit of a background in psychology as well. And so I saw this hypnotherapy training course, and I never intended to do anything with it. I just thought, oh, that's interesting. Might go on that. And even when I did the training, I can't say I was particularly hooked or knew what I was going to do with it. At the time, I was getting a divorce, and to be honest with you, you know, I had no business or marketing background. And so I thought, well, if I saw a couple of people a week on top of my normal salary, will help pay the bills, kind of thing. And that was my thinking behind it. But I think when you start working with people, and I think this moment happens for everybody, like you see your first person and they say that it's worked. It's like, are you sure?
Be careful, yeah.
Are you sure it's worked? And then you kind of get to the point where you kind of think, crikey, this shit works. This shit absolutely works. And when somebody says, you know, you've changed my life, or you've, you know, really helped a child that had a big issue, you know, that desire and that passion to do more of that kind of starts to take over. And that's where I was with it, really, in my early stages with it.
And I remember you told me the story of the local press, because that was one of the first sessions almost that you had done, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I think, you know, we do have to take a bravery pill when we're
yes.
you know, be it you're just practicing your techniques or whatever, we've got to take that bravery pill. I always describe it as sometimes we've got to put our big girl's pants on, you know, and not be too worried about the outcome, you know, just go with the flow. So I've been qualified for a week, having done my diploma, and I wasn't a perfect student. You know, I wasn't somebody who'd done lots of practice. I wish I could say I was, but I wasn't. And I don't know what did it, why to this day, what made me do it, because like I say, I didn't have any background in talking to the press. But the front page of my local paper was a plea for help, and it was a lady who'd hiccuped for 5.5 years continuously. And she'd been everywhere and, you know, was kind of plea for help. And I rang the journalist up who wrote the article and said, I'm a hypnotherapist, because I've got a certificate that says that I am. And I'd like to offer this lady a complimentary session. If she'd like to take me up on it, just give me my details and it'll be arranged. The following day, they rang me back up, did this journalist, and she said, we'd like to bring that lady to you and we'd like to film it for our website. And I thought, oh.
After a week?
Yeah, no pressure there then. No pressure there. That night, I frantically went through as many things I could find about, you know, how do you work with hiccups? How do you work with hiccups? What do you do? What do you do? Is there a script? What do I do? What do I do? And there was absolutely nothing. So I thought, well, I just had to go with the flow. I thought it'd be okay because, you know, I'll get information from this lady when she comes. She was as quiet as a little mouse.
Right.
You know, she was one of those people who gave one-word answers. And I thought, what am I going to work with here? All I knew was that she was a cleaner, a bingo hall. She mopped floors and she was getting a divorce. And that's all I knew about her, nothing else. So I'm sitting in my therapy room. The cameras are rolling with the press. I started my hypnotic induction thinking, I hope an angel is going to appear shortly and tell me what to say. Because at the moment, you know, I am now at 7 on my hypnotic induction and I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do. So I just thought, well, just go with what you know. Just go with what you know. So she's told me she's a cleaner. So I said, I wonder what this bit looks like. Maybe it needs a bit of a clean, you know, maybe it's a bit mucky. It kind of went along these lines, and I kind of got her to say, it's to clean it all up, have it looking what it should look like. I'm going to go quiet until you've done that. So it was actually a very brief session. I didn't do much talking at all. Just go quietly.
Creativity.
Yeah. And there was a couple of other things I did, but pretty much she just stopped hiccuping.
That's pretty impressive for a first session.
Yeah.
I imagine then that generated a lot of business for you.
Yeah. So the following day, the newspaper wrote a full-page article how I'd stopped this lady hiccuping, and they said that I was a change expert. Yeah. Thank you very much. 1 week qualified. But that made the phone ring. It put the story, which even today with all the digital marketing that you can do, and there are many things that we can do to market ourselves, but showing it and getting the press to put you in front of hundreds of people, free advertising. And we all have those opportunities. If everything was taken away from me tomorrow, I would go back to some of those basics.
Yeah.
I kind of, keep in touch with what's happening in your local community, because although, this week I'm kind of demonstrating how laptop will travel, sitting in a nice villa in Lanzarote, but I'm still actually working as well, because that was part of my business plan, to be able to work elsewhere. And so, but I will always really keep the pulse on what's happening in my local community. What are the things that are bothering people? Where are the levels of anxiety? And in our local newspapers, they'll report on local people and issues that they're having. We can potentially make a difference to those. We've just got to.
How do you reach out to them? Is it through advertising, or do you go see them, or what way do you?
Yeah, a lot of, I think a lot of what we do is about, sometimes we've got to build relationships with people. We've got to be genuinely helpful. If I was to approach a newspaper and say, send them a press release about something and they're nothing about me, probably they would come back and say, you can pay for advertising if you want. I don't want paid advertising. I want you to write an article about this. So there's a few rules. We've got to have a newsworthy story.
Yes.
It's got to be seen to be something different. And this is where hypnosis does come in, and we can really play on that, because hypnosis is something different.
Absolutely.
The person loses 10 stone through the power of the mind. That is always going to be a newsworthy story.
Yeah.
It's always going to be of interest to journalists. But what we've got to do is put that in front of them.
Okay, so it's taking the successes, and obviously with clients' permission and all that, but then pretty much reaching out to the media to go, or advertising it, as the case may be.
Yeah, I used to make it my mission to be in my local paper every single month with a different article about me. And that might have been, working with business owners. It might have been a story about a client. It might have been that I'm doing some work for a local charity, that I'm doing a VIP day for the homeless, helping them with confidence, because I wanted it so that in my local community, if anybody thought about seeing a hypnotist, mine was the name that people knew.
You nearly had your own column if you were in it every month.
In effect, nearly. And that's another thing, there are opportunities. I've never taken it down this route, but, many people do. There are opportunities to be columnists for local
people. Absolutely. And become the local expert that somebody will ring if there's an issue or whatever, whether it's a radio station or a newspaper. Yeah. Yeah,
because people have got to see your name over and over and over again, so a lot of the time I think we're looking for that one thing that's going to change everything, but it's not. It's that culmination of activity.
Yeah. The other thing that you said there that kind of struck me, because we had last weekend we had a Irish Hypnotherapy Conference Christmas party, but we did some training before that. So one of the things that we did, and it actually came from a thing that Melissa Tears I saw in Vegas, was, so you're a hypnotist, show me something. Sean Michael Andrews does that as well. And it is that it opens doors and opportunities so that people can just see you apply your trade. Because
Mm-hmm.
loads of people only want to do it in the actual therapy room, whereas it can happen anywhere.
Yeah, completely. I tend to, I don't know, if I've got a meeting with my accountant, I'll do something in their office.
Right.
So I'm always kind of playing with it wherever I am.
Yeah.
Because, I used to employ a virtual office to answer calls all the time. And I needed to go and do an education piece with them to so they knew what to say when they picked up the phone to somebody. They could answer some basic questions about hypnosis. And there was a girl there who was telling me that she just said, "Oh, you can't do anything for headaches, can you? I've got a blinding headache today."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Should we do something about that now?" And straight away, it's kind of, I think we've got to listen out for the opportunities for us.
Of course.
And be prepared to offer. Because, and rather than offer, oh, you can book sessions for that, it's like, just do something.
Absolutely. And of course, even the branding that people wear, like the hypnotist or whatever it is, and you see them at conventions all the time. And from that, you grew your own local practice then, but you expanded then in, because right now you have your business club, you're well known for virtual gastric band. How did you go down the gastric band route? Because I actually saw it's a gastric band jab. Do you want to explain that?
Virtual weight loss jab. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the latest, isn't it? Like and I think it is, we're looking, what is our hook for people sometimes. And, so we become relatable. And, for me, the virtual gastric band really filled my clinic. So, I built a private practice seeing between 35 and 50 clients a week.
So you pretty much specialised on weight loss?
Yeah, in under 2 years from a standing start.
Right.
Okay. With no business or marketing background. Now, I wouldn't recommend that as a business model. It was exciting. But I had no business knowledge at the time. Mm-hmm. So I just did what I thought was right, And I think that's the other thing. We've all got to be continually learning on the business front as we do on the therapy front. We've got to invest in our professional development. And also I think one of the things is about having skin in the game. We've got to have a goal, a why, what's going to make us drop ourselves out of our comfort zone or learn the next thing. And, having that really strong why. And for me, when I started up, my why was, I was getting divorced. I didn't have a pot of money behind me. There was me and my daughter at home. There was only me to pay the mortgage and the bills. It wasn't an option for this business to fail.
Yeah. I understand. It's a very strong driver.
Yeah. And so, I really did have skin in the game. And but yeah, so the virtual gastric band, the kind of story behind that was that my father-in-law at the time used to send me newspaper articles of hypnosis in the news. And this particular Saturday, he sent me this article about a couple in Spain called the Shirans, who had come up with the concept of a gastric mind band to help people lose weight. They were charging people, I don't know, €4,000 to go to Spain. They'd do 4 sessions with them while they were there. And they said they were getting them to imagine surgery with sounds and smells. And I read the article and I thought, what a load of rubbish. That is never going to work for somebody in a million years. But at the time, a lot of my clients were coming for weight loss. And it was a bit hit and miss. Some people worked for some people, not for others. I hadn't really got a handle on it. So I thought, what the heck? I don't know what they did, the Shirans, but I'm going to put that concept, because that's what everything is really. It's a concept to a bit of a trial. So again, I put my big girl's pants on. I asked for 25 volunteers. Nobody paid me any money. Again, big girl's pants. I said to the local media, would you like to come along and independently verify the results that I get?
Right. Very brave.
So I hired a hotel room. Nobody was paying me any money. So I kind of a little bit exploded the myth that somebody has to pay to get a result. And saw these people over 4 sessions. The first session was, imaginary surgery. Then we're going to deal with emotions and cravings and all sorts of things after that. But 23 out of 25 got positive results.
Wow.
I was amazed. Could have knocked me over with a feather. Again, it was one of those moments like, are you sure? And of course, because I'd invited the media, then they really reported on this.
Yeah.
So after that initial just playing around with it, the week following it, I was interviewed on BBC News. It was a double page spread in the local paper. It was being played as a news item on the radio, on the hour, every hour.
Right.
I mean, if I had to pay for
Massive
that
publicity. Absolutely. All for being brave.
For being brave. 2
brave steps, actually. Both applying the principle, which a lot of people can do, but also inviting the media.
Yeah. And, I always say, if I had to start again tomorrow, that would be my first point of call straight away.
Right.
And then I think, we run a little bit scared of the media that, are they going to discredit us?
Yes.
And I think the reality is they're only going to discredit us if we do something that's discreditable. Yes. If we make claims that we can't back up.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we pretend that we're a cure-all for everything.
Yes. Eric Coles will talk a lot about that, actually. He keeps mentioning it with cancer.
Yeah.
And particularly from the research evidence part of it, that, it's those wild claims that kind of are at least for anyone else who might not be familiar with hypnosis and knows almost the miracles that can happen every day. But, yeah.
Yeah, because we've all had people who it hasn't worked with.
Yes.
For whatever reason that may be.
Yeah.
I've had failures, I still get failures, but, if we give of our best, if we work with integrity, if we have the person's best interests at heart.
Yes.
So I don't take on people who I don't think I can help.
Right.
I might refer them out, I might signpost them somewhere else. But, if I don't think that this is right for somebody, then I'm honest enough to say this isn't right, because, I think we have a duty, a sense of responsibility for the work that we do.
How do you screen those? Is that in a pre-call, or is that on the first session, or is that, or how do you do it?
For me, marketing wise, it's about getting somebody to take the next step.
Right.
That's all. I don't want them to book a session. I don't want to just go on my diary and book in. I want to have the opportunity to speak to them and lay eyes on them as well. So from a marketing perspective, it's like, if I can get somebody to have a complimentary consultation, they've taken the next step, but they're taking a little bit of a next step towards it. That consultation allows me to lay eyes on somebody. I don't want to just talk to somebody on the phone. I'm not getting enough of a personal connection that way. So I will get somebody on a Zoom call or in person and just let them tell me for 30 minutes what the issue is.
Yeah.
I can then form an impression as well. Okay, can I help this person?
I got it. Absolutely. Okay, that's really good. Because the other thing, and I think you and I spoke about it in London, is, and again, it's something I've been talking to all the speakers about, is how the profession becomes more known. And, one of the things that keeps coming back is it's the evidence from your neighbor, from your, but then there's the other side of those wonderful success stories that can be sent to the media once they're evidenced.
Yeah. So, we've got to educate more.
Yeah.
And, again, show more.
Yeah.
We've got to be talking to the right people and building the right relationships. That might be with, local GPs. Think about, schools with children, kind of what we do around mindset, can change so many things. And I'm kind of living proof that you can take it into almost every area. So I became known for virtual gastric band, and practitioners all around the world using that system. What I really love about it is not just how the program helps the clients, but how it helps people build a business.
Yes.
So because if they're running it as a business and they're helping more people, they're educating more people know about it, it's a win-win situation. But then, like I've taken hypnosis into schools and colleges and universities. I've taken it into businesses, worked with entrepreneurs. I've taken it into charities. Kind of pretty much every single area that you can think of. I've always thought, I'll have a go.
And it's just an introduction then. And if they accept it, there you are. If they don't, then you don't go.
Yeah. I don't, I'm not about ramming it down anybody's throats. I'm not, because there's nothing more annoying when somebody kind of says to you, we've all got bad habits.
Yes.
And there's nothing more annoying when somebody says to you, I can do something about that for you. And you're not ready to do anything about it.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll move on from that one.
Yeah. So, we can't be, all we can do is educate.
Absolutely. And realize that we're all human as well, which is the other side of it, even as a therapist. And actually, that brings me on to something else, because when you and I were talking in London, and I think I've mentioned it on this before, but that I am adopted and the effects of it, you also are.
Yeah, so I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old. My adoptive parents who brought me up, are still alive. My mum was 95 just a couple of days ago. My dad's 91. And, I was very fortunate. I had a really good upbringing, very supportive adoptive parents. I traced my birth mum. And in fact, actually, if anybody listening to this, my birth father is from Ireland. And I've not done anything about tracing him, but if anybody is good at tracing people in Ireland, please get in touch. I'll give you his details, see if you can find him. I'd be really interested. But yeah, I traced my birth mum about 15 years ago, and it's a success story. She was 16 when she had me. It was in the 60s. It was a shame on the family. She kind of tells me a horror story about it, but as you know, everybody's affected in this triangle of adoption. And for me, I've always had, although I come across as, whoa, I should just go and do all those things. What drives that actually is a bit of a negative. Because I live with a very uneasy feeling that I'm not good enough.
Yeah, and I think that's very common amongst people who were adopted. It's that, whether it's that lack of bonding at the early stages, and I think I was nearly 7 months in an orphanage. So it drives you. It's the fear of rejection almost actually drives you. You're not good enough, so you're going to prove it anyway.
Yeah. So I got this uneasy feeling that I'm not good enough, and so what I have to do is keep proving that I am.
Yeah.
Now, a therapist, I'm sure, would tell me, well, you could do something about that, Sheila, if you wanted to, but I'm not going to get, from a business perspective, that served me really well.
Right. So you've harnessed it.
Yeah.
You harnessed it to drive your success.
Yeah. So that kind of does push me to, well, I've got to go out and do something else. I've got to go and do something else. I've got to go and do something else. Now, we know that's never going to get rid of the feeling, but actually that served me really well with my hypnosis business.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you're ever going to get rid of the feeling, but even if you try to, it would still be there, because that bonding period at the very beginning is quite crucial. But and obviously it's different for everybody too. Life experiences put on top of all of that. But there's so many people who are adopted who aren't even aware that is, something that's in the background for them. So, and it's one of their drivers without necessarily knowing it.
I know when I split up with my first husband, he'd wanted us to go for counselling, kind of try and save this marriage. And it was interesting because one of the things that the counsellor brought up was this adoption. And actually said that, with some people who were adopted, which I found quite interesting, they hit they might hit the early 40s, and then it's like they press the self-destruct button on relationships. And I thought that was really interesting. Now, I didn't think that was anything to do with why I got divorced, but at the time I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I think, when people are adopted, they won't let anybody get too close.
Yes, very true.
But it's going to get that close. So even people who you would say are close to you, there is still a bit of an invisible shield that's like, you'll get that close, but not any closer.
Yeah.
Because of that kind of, like self-preservation. And I think I told you when we were in London, my brother, who I was brought up with, he was also adopted. And he'd never really been interested like me in tracing his birth parents, but he did. He was never going to do anything about it. Then completely out the blue, he got a letter from a private detective agency who said, your birth mother's looking to find you. And for a long while, he wasn't going to do anything about this because it was never something that he wanted to do something about. But he thought, okay, I'll meet her. And so he met his birth mum. She started to build a relationship with him. This went on for about 2 years. And then completely out the blue, he got a letter from her to say that she didn't want to see him anymore.
How was he after that? I know I can only imagine it actually, but it's the rejection that's coming again.
It's like a double rejection, that. And my parents who brought me up, who never say anything bad about anybody, they actually wrote her a letter and said, to do that to a baby is one thing, to do it for a second time to a 50-year-old man.
Yeah.
Now, I think she probably came under, pressure from a family maybe to stop this.
You never know the reasons, yeah.
You never know the reasons. But I say it really is kind of a complete triangle, isn't it? So,
yeah, absolutely.
You've got the birth mum who, maybe for years has lived with guilt, the emotional grief for her of having to hand a baby over. And again, I think when you meet, relatives, I mean, there's all these long last family kind of programs, but and they portray this mega happy ending. But I remember when I met my birth mum for the first time, it was like I've opened a can of worms and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. Because the person that you might have in your head or the illusion that you might have created is actually something very different in reality.
Absolutely. And it is, and I know because I remember when I held my son in my arms for the very first time, I mean that, the person who hasn't been in your life but was the reason that you're there. I'm holding my son going, somebody did this for me, 20 odd years ago. And I always want to know where he is and that he's okay. So it began so there is always somebody, and any kind of human emotion is going to, birthdays or it'll be every day actually, as it was in that case, but it'll be special significant events will cause people to feel it internally. And of course, hypnotherapists work a lot with emotion anyway, so there is an awful lot of emotional support that is available, and particularly through hypnotherapy, where we can access those parts of the mind that go back. I'm not saying we can fix it completely, but we can definitely support it. So if there's anyone out there who is listening to this and is affected by that, then please just reach out. The other, you've then branched and you have your own. We'll move from one to move on, unless there's something else you want to say on that. Is there?
No, I mean, and obviously, you and I, John, are going to explore, well, is there something more that we could do for people who, in all aspects of that triangle, where more support, can be offered. So it's kind of watch this space for that, really. But yeah, if anybody has been affected by what we've talked about there, please know that you can reach out to either one of us, and we'd be very happy to have a chat with you.
Absolutely. You also then have a very successful business club. When did you set that
up? So that was actually set up just as COVID hit.
Right.
So, when COVID first hit, in a way, I was a little bit jealous of my neighbours because they were like, they had a job and they were just going to be staying at home and making their garden lovely.
Yeah.
And I thought, I want 3 months to make my garden lovely as well and bake cakes and do all those things that everybody else is doing. But unfortunately, I've got a business. But because, as hypnotherapists, we can be really bad at marketing ourselves, really bad. And it's only when we get better at that and better at educating people that we can, help more people at the end of the day. So when COVID hit, and I actually saw a lot of posts on social media from hypnotherapists who were just really going to take the time off and do some baking and stuff like that. And I thought, that's a really bad move. That's a really bad move. We all know what happened to businesses that went quiet during COVID.
Yes.
They just kind of drifted away and never managed to build themselves back up again. So I really went out with a 12-week. It was a bit of a marketing course, but I did everything for people. So during those 12 weeks, I provided a promotional video that people could put out on the media. I wrote press releases that people could send out to their local papers, wrote blogs that they could share, but all mainly for what was happening. So, how COVID was impacting on people's anxiety and what they could do about it. So I had lots of hypnotherapists around the world landed newspaper articles, magazine articles. But the good thing was that many of them, instead of their businesses dying off, they doubled and trebled their business. And in those 12 weeks could really get to grips with, what do I need to do on a weekly basis to market and actually feel comfortable doing this?
And even had we moved fully online, because that you had to be at that point in time.
Yeah, completely. And so it wasn't kind of, I wish I could say this was a business move on my part to develop a business club, but it really wasn't. It was supposed to be just a 12-week course, but there was 150 hypnotherapists around the world who joined me on these 12 weeks. And after the 12 weeks, they kind of said to me, Sheila, we really like meeting up. Can't we carry on doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when kind of my hypnosis growth club was kind of born, really. And so it's ongoing business and marketing lessons, and there is some done for material for people, but it's very much focusing, I think. It's not sometimes about getting more clients. People sometimes say to me, how do I get more clients? How do I get clients? And it's not necessarily about that. It's about, to start with, what's your overall plan? What do you want life to look like?
That's a really good question.
Because, as you see, like I'm sitting in a nice little villa in Lanzarote at the moment, but that was actually part of the plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't a random thing. So, I start at the beginning of the year thinking, what do I want this next year to look like? What do I want to do, holiday-wise for my family, of course I've got to pay the bills, of course I have, but we don't want a business that's just about paying the bills.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a really great position in this profession in that we get to choose everything. We get to choose the hours that we work. We get to choose the type of clients that we want to work with. We can get to choose how much we want this business to produce financially for us and what we want to do with that money. There's few other jobs that allow that to happen.
Flexibility, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's you're living here with the end. The end is right behind you. You can see it, but that started as a concept back in January.
Back in January, what part of my goals in January was, I wanted to be able to treat my family to a week here, a nice villa. So all that you can see is just, there's nobody else living in this bit. But to be fair, this week it's just me and my partner, so we are rattling around a bit. But I wanted to be able to treat my family, my daughter, bring my grandson out here who's 4, and have some real quality family time, but be able to treat them to that and pay for that for them, because that's what mattered to me. It was important to me, and that's why I say it's really got to matter. There's lots of things that we like to dream about having, like a, Ferrari parked outside. No, I wouldn't really, but, it's kind of, we start off with our big dreams, but then drilling it down to what's important. So as well as paying the bills, what else do we want to happen this year? So how much has the business got to do each month? Well, if it's got to do X amount, and then we look at our prices. Well, how much per client for that to happen? And the market, well, how do we get the person people at that amount of money?
Yeah.
So, but it's got to kind of matter, and we're all different to what success means for us.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's really what the business club is about, is people have that understanding of what they personally want to produce.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think, we can look sideways too much. We can draw comparison to what other people are doing and think, oh, well, I'm not as good as that person, or, I don't know how to do that, or they're doing that, so maybe I should do that. And I've always found that actually I don't draw comparisons ever, because they're not me. They're not on my path. But we want to know what our path is for us, and then we put the plan into place for making that happen.
And that is the key, because it's your life, and success is different for you than it is for me or for anyone else. So, what I do with my life is not necessarily, it's not relevant. It's your life that matters for you, and that's the same for anyone. Yeah, brilliant. And you've been promoting that now for quite some time, haven't you? For the last couple of years, and it just seems to be expanding. So well done.
Thank you.
The other thing that you and I spoke about actually was the Bank of Dave and the community, and because that's one of the things that this conference is literally about, is that whole sense of creating a community that didn't really exist before. So yeah, that was a really good movie. I really enjoyed watching that, actually.
Yeah. So those of you who haven't watched Bank of Dave, it's a really good feel-good film as well. It's a really easy watch. And there's also a book by a guy called Dave Fishwick. So he is Bank of Dave. And for those of you who don't know the story, he was a businessman, and he'd noticed that a lot of business owners weren't able to get funding anymore from the banks. The banks were saying, no, you've not got enough assets, you've not got this, you've not got that, your credit rating is not high enough, because the computer says no. I'm sure, you and I are probably old enough to remember the time that you could go into your bank manager and even you knew it personally.
Yeah.
You had a relationship, so you weren't just a number where he decided based on the numbers on a machine whether you could get any money or not. So, but this was happening in Dave Fishwick's area, so he started to say, well, why can't I just lend the money to my friend down the road for his business? I know he's good for it, I know he's a good chap, I know he's going to work hard. And then he took it a step further and thought, well, why can't I just open my own bank on my terms? And it was a bank that was by the community, for the community.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big lesson there. And my business thing is all about, our community of hypnotherapists, and actually how we can help each other. And by helping each other, by giving each other a leg up, we actually achieve so much more.
Absolutely. It's cooperation will just allow for each individual and the whole sector to just expand and expand and expand.
Yeah. I mean, no man is an island at the end of the day, but as a group, just think if everybody in Ireland, kind of embraced educating the public, for example, then far more people are going to contact.
Yeah.
One of my big visions for 2024 is, I'm not saying that necessarily a new association, although it might be, but it's about really aligning ourselves and putting ourselves into schools, into the medical profession, providing the evidence, providing the research, but also the ongoing education. Because if we do that and our members go off and do those things, that can only be good for everybody. We create a win-win, a win for our profession, a win for the individual therapists for building businesses, because more opportunities are opened up.
Absolutely. And that fits in perfectly because one of the objectives of the conference is to, make hypnotherapy a more go-to therapy and to demystify, I think is the term that we use about it. But,
Mm,
it is basically what you're talking about. So I think that's a space to be continued.
mm. Yeah. If you were the Ireland's, like best educator, number one educator of all things hypnosis, what would that look like?
Yeah. Now you've got me thinking. Um,
It's like putting our stake in the ground, isn't it? I think
it is, yeah.
something that could be useful for everybody to have kind of a mission statement, if you like, for their business. I was talking to a gentleman, I think he might be from Ireland, but he niched in PTSD.
Right.
And so, talking to him about his business, I said, well, what's the mission? What do you stand for? What if your mission was to help 10,000 people overcome PTSD?
Mm.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean 10,000 clients.
Yes.
That could mean ebooks, audios, podcasts. You're still kind of reaching people, if you like,
Absolutely.
to help with those numbers. But if he wanted an article in the press, for example, in his bio, it said, this person, is on a mission to help 10,000 people overcome PTSD, then people take that more seriously. It has a credibility attached to it.
Yeah.
And then everything that he does for marketing himself becomes on mission to help those people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that with the conference, one of the missions is to demystify, to pull together, to build that community. So, that the website that we have will start to change to reflect the therapists that are part of the group and the research that exists in certain sections, so that it's there for people to see as a resource to both therapists and ultimately expand that into the community.
So they could
continue that conversation in Dublin.
Yeah, so there could be resources for the medical profession, resources for schools, resources for, and you just start expanding it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Sheila, thank you. Is there anything you want to say to anyone watching? I'm
looking forward to that. What is it? A pint of Guinness that I've got
pint
to
of
drink.
Guinness. There you go. Guinness at the hop store.
Yeah. No, John, I take my hat off to you to what you're doing for the profession in Ireland. You're a great role model to how our community can really come together, help each other. And when we do that, brilliant things happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sheila, thank you. I so look forward to seeing you in Dublin, and to everyone else who's been watching this, wherever you are and whatever time of the day it is. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.